this is our college basketball segment on Hood's Huddle. We're kind of going to go down through a run through of what's been happening in college basketball as of late, what we're looking forward to here in the future, and maybe we're going to get into it here talking about Indiana. Even though they lost earlier in the week, they ended up beating number 10 Ohio State, and they get to keep the number 1 ranking because Florida lost, who was number 2. They lost earlier in the week also. So it was kind of one of those things where they got lucky. Duke moved back into the 2 spot, but with Florida losing and the number 3 team also lost, Indiana got to keep their title. They lost to Illinois on a buzzer beater. Illinois wasn't even ranked though, so it's kind of confusing. It's a little weird. It's a little odd, but what isn't a little weird and a little odd in college basketball nowadays right now? This is the craziest year I've ever personally seen.
This year is just nuts, man. I don't even know how to start to describe it. Like, I think seven number ones have gone down already. Yeah. 7 times.
Yeah.
That's just nuts.
Yeah. At first, it seemed like it was just number 1s losing, but then you look all across college basketball, and it's upset cities everywhere. Nobody's safe in the top 25 right now. The craziest games are happening. I mean, 5 overtimes between Notre Dame and Louisville the other day. It's just like things are just happening that don't usually happen in college basketball this year. It's been fun to watch. It's been very fun to watch. But I don't know who I'm picking for the tournament.
Yeah, it's going to drive
Duke
those
was
people.
The most dominant.
Yeah, it's going to drive those people nuts because who knows what's going to happen, because the way all these teams have been getting upset, and like not on the road, like at home and on the road, like it doesn't matter where they're at. It doesn't matter, they're dropping them, teams are just stepping up. Some teams are just not showing up. It's crazy.
Yeah. Every number 1 team has lost on the road, but outside number 1, it seems like they're losing at home, they're losing on the road, they're losing at neutral sites. I mean, it's crazy, it's weird, and I can't wait to see what happens in the tournament, because in the beginning of the year, I thought Duke was the outright clear favorite. They were playing above everybody. They get beat up by Miami by a lot. They lost to NC State at one point too. So it was kind of like, well, maybe they're not so good. I don't know who I'm going to pick for the tournament. I don't see any team just riding through like it's a cool breeze like a Kentucky or a Kansas did last year to get to the finals. It's going to be very interesting. I think there's going to be upsets everywhere in the tournament itself this year because, man, this has been the wackiest regular season of college basketball that I can remember personally.
I agree. I don't think you're going to be able to, like, usually you have at least 1 or 2 teams that are just dominant throughout almost all year. I mean, there might be a slip up here there. But you can normally tell like some teams, but we don't have any of them this year because they're all just going down like it's nothing. So
Indiana State at number 1 is very interesting. I'm interested to see if they're going to lose anytime during this week, because that will just be again, they were number 1 last week and lost, but it'll be another number 1 losing. I mean, it's weird, it's interesting. Duke right back in there, kind of quietly crept back to the number 2 spot. Miami, I think they have more of a case than anybody else to be number 1 right now, because they blew out North Carolina this week. North Carolina's down, but they still blew North Carolina out this week. They blew Duke out. They're the first team to beat North Carolina and Duke by 25 points or more in the same season, which is beyond impressive.
That's crazy.
Unbelievable. Yeah, that's really crazy. They're number 3 in the nation. Arizona blew them out there earlier in the year, so they're kind of like, well, Arizona's getting a lot of love actually because of that one game earlier in the year. Now they're seeing what Miami's doing. Miami, though, they're on a tear. They might be the hottest team about college basketball. You don't want to be the hottest team in February. You want to be the hottest team in March. So that might, work against them a little bit. But right now, they're at number 3. They're looking like a scary team. It's going to be such an interesting kind of ending to the season.
I agree. I don't know who's going to end up being number 1 at the end of the season because it's just been so crazy. But how about Gonzaga sneaking up the number 5 spot there?
Yeah, Gonzaga, kind of quiet the last few years. Haven't made as much noise as they usually did. The Zach Morris, since then it's been kind of like up and down. They've been in it, but not really in it. But they've kind of come out of nowhere this year, and they've really played really well. They're in the top 10 as they should, the top 5 actually as they should. They're receiving votes for number 1 because they're quietly beating a lot of teams, and they're really winning with a lot of dominance. So they look interesting. And the team ahead of them right now is Michigan. Michigan lost to Indiana. They just lost to Wisconsin on it. Yeah, on the buzzer beater going into overtime, and then they just didn't really look too well in overtime, and they got beat up there.
I'm kind of surprised that they're still at the 4th spot after that.
So am I. I think in the beginning of the year, Michigan was a little inflated because of the big names, because of these players, because of who they're related to, who their dads are, and they are. They're playing great. They played great basketball in the beginning of the year, and they really made their own name for themselves. But since that number one ranking, they went to overtime against Ohio State. Ohio State was ranked number 10 in the nation, so it's not like it's a horrible team to go into overtime with. But they went to overtime. They were getting beat for most of the game. It looked like Ohio State was playing more scared than, confident with the lead. I think Ohio State lost that game more than Michigan won that game. So, Michigan's been playing a little, their level of play hasn't been as high as it was earlier in this year. And, that seems like it's been hurting them, but they're still hanging around the top 5 somehow. And, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen for them there down the road?
Yeah,
too.
Absolutely. I mean, at this rate, anything can happen. So who knows if they can turn it on and kick it into gear here to close out the season maybe. We'll see. It'll definitely be interesting to see who's hot going into the tournament, because that's going to make a big difference from right now for everything. Been some crazy games lately. How about the quintuple overtime between Notre Dame and Louisville?
Yeah.
Crazy.
We just kind of talked on that. How does that? ND had 2 court rushes in one day. That kid won the half-court contest.
Half-court shot,
and the players rushed the court, and so did all the fans, and then they end up winning 5 overtimes. ND seemed like they refused to lose. Louisville had a few chances and just didn't really take them, and
some bad shots
impressive.
From Louisville.
Yeah, odd. Very Rick Pitino coached teams like, and I think he was kind of getting on his players. A lot of unknown players for ND stepped up in that game, and that was a great game to watch. It was very fun. I know, I was tuned in for every second of it, and it just seems like, that's probably been the craziest game in college basketball this year, but that game kind of sums up what's been happening in college basketball this year.
Absolutely.
Overtimes everywhere, it seems like, and, it's just, you can't really say enough.
Yeah, it was a great game. It was fun to watch. I'm loving how crazy this year's being, because you don't know who's going to win. You can tune into every game, no matter if it's number one playing an unranked team or not, because who knows, they might lose. I mean, TCU came up with their big conference win, first conference win against Kansas. I mean, that was a ridiculous game to watch too. I was watching that and I was like, really, Kansas just seems like they're falling apart. 3 losses in a row. They're like, I watched that TCU game, and they didn't look like they had any kind of fire going for them.
They looked like they played well in the beginning of the game, and then it got towards the end, and they just looked like they weren't following the plays. They weren't listening to the coach. I mean, everything just seemed like it was starting to go wrong for them, and they couldn't respond. They just couldn't respond. TCU took care of it too.
Yeah. So I think they started off kind of slow, though. I think they had 2 points in the first 6 minutes or something like that. It was some kind of ridiculous stat like that. I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, how do you, as I think they were rated 5 at that point. How does that happen still? It's beyond me.
The upsets.
But
yeah, and that's just part of the upsets that's been happening. The court has been getting rushed a lot this year. Do you think it's happening too much in college basketball? Because that's becoming a topic of conversation a lot on nationally renowned sports shows.
I mean, if it's always exciting to see. But a lot of them, there's been so many of them this year, it might lose its thunder a little bit going into these later games. But I mean, an upset's always an upset, no matter what. Especially in college, the student section's always going to rush to the court on any kind of upset. So it's going to happen, and it's always going to be exciting because it's always fun to see that. See the team that shouldn't win. But again, it's been happening so much.
Is it going to turn into the thing where in college football they used to rush the field after big upset wins, but now they're not, that's not allowed anymore. They completely banned that. They took that completely out. Do you think it's going to end up happening in college basketball with the way this is unfolded this year? Because the upsets are why teams are rushing the court, but if we're getting upsets 4 or 5 times a week, big upsets 4 or 5 times a week, not to mention, teams that aren't too far apart from each other, upsets getting the court rush, do you think there's going to be a little bit of some kind of rules or security or anything?
There could be. I mean, definitely it'd be for player safety and things like that, because anything could happen when people rush the court. But at the same time, it's been going on for this long, so I don't see what difference it's going to make. But then, if you do that, are you going to not allow that for the tournament either? When something crazy happens in the tournament? So there's things to look at there, because I mean, how are you gonna do that to a tournament team? What if a number 16 seed wins, in the first round? Well, you're going to tell them they can't rush the court. They had no business,
Yeah, their student section.
So, yeah, that's tough. I mean, that's for the NCAA to look into, but I hope not, because I love watching it. I'd love to be a part of it one day in my life.
Absolutely.
It seems like an incredible scene. So I hope they don't.
Yeah, I mean, I hope they don't take it out either. I think it's a very fun thing. I think that, and it's going to have to be self-governed, and I don't think it will ever happen, but I would like to see maybe student sections kind of pick and choose the games that they think are really worthy of it. And if it's your school, you're going to feel like your school is more worthy of it than this game, and I understand that, and that's why it's probably not going to ever be able to be self-governed, but, things like the 5 overtime game, Notre Dame won, and they rushed the court. It was an upset. It was not a big upset, but it was an upset. Right. It was a 5 overtime game. I think that's why they more rushed the court than anything. Right. But do you think like a game like that's worthy? You know what I mean? What happens?
I mean, 5 overtimes is crazy, so I don't see how you could like look down upon that. I mean, that's not something you see all the time. So I think that would, something like that would be okay. I mean, granted, it was 11-25, and Louisville hasn't been playing that great at basketball. Neither has Notre Dame. So,
right.
I mean, but I give it to them because it was a crazy game. The Notre Dame didn't stop fighting, so I don't see why I think that's fine to rush the court in that situation.
Yeah, as a home game for Notre Dame, I mean, those fans were going crazy after every, tie for overtime. Everything was happening. They were just going nuts. I think it's a game that's kind of one of those rare games that are kind of weird but deserving a court rush, even though it wasn't as big of an as an upset because of the 5 overtimes. But I think if they would have beat them in regulation, I don't know if that deserves a court rushing.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. Because it's not as big as what did happen.
It's not too huge of an upset. But what happened was epic. It was ridiculous. And if you're part of that, you want to be on the court. You want to be getting.
Absolutely.
Speaking of, you mentioned people can get injured and stuff. The guy from UCLA, the kid from UCLA, wanted. He said that he didn't congratulate his teammate after he screamed for the ball in the last play because his teammate was getting mobbed by his players. I mean. Things like that. These players are acting like they're rushing the court after things too, and they're jumping all over each other. I mean, it's happening all over the place. I don't know. I mean, it's a hard thing to take out of college basketball.
Yeah, it's an excitement factor. These are college kids. They're going to get hyped over games. I mean, every game means something, especially in the college level. So
yeah,
I'd give it to
them.
So
that was kind of our Hood's Huddle college basketball kind of overview up until this point. A little bit of a preview too. We'll definitely touch base here before the conference tournaments again one last time, and then after the conference tournaments, going into the actual big NCAA tournaments, we'll definitely we'll be doing our picks and showing everybody how we kind of how we think it's going to unveil and bracket by bracket, but So until then, just enjoy all the upsets and the craziness in college basketball. It's been real fun. It seems like hopefully this doesn't go away. I think we don't want it to peak here in the middle of February, but we'll see what happens here coming down the road.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be an exciting end of the season. See where everything plays out. Please follow us on Twitter. See our Twitter handles up here.
Yeah.
Like Hood's Huddle on Facebook. You can follow Hood's Huddle on Twitter. We made an Instagram. We're on there, so follow us on there. There might be some big things coming, some kind of free stuff, some tournaments coming, things for you to get involved, maybe win some free stuff. Please like and subscribe to the videos. Ask us some questions.
Yeah, through any kind of media, however you want. We'll answer them either on the show or right there to you directly. We'll definitely do our best trying to handle all that. So, we appreciate you watching. We appreciate let everybody know. Let your friends, let your family know, and we thank you.
Yep. So we hope you had as much fun watching as we did making it. Hopefully we'll be back for the next one.